Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching this week's weekly video. How y'all doing? We are back for another week. And I want to start out the week saying, y'all, so we doing something new in 2026. Yes, you will be getting your weekly Wednesday emails, but we are going back to doing the podcast because I have been talking about I need to start the podcast again and do it the way we're supposed to do it, etc. But I'm going live. And so how I go live is every Friday from noon to 1 o'clock. I will be going live. Now, am I going to stay on there the whole hour? It depends on the topic that we're talking about this week. My goal is to, and I do have 2 videos up there now. I will be live on YouTube. I'm getting it to the point where I got to do y'all know me in technology. Let's be real, me in technology. My goal is to be live on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook in our business channels during that time frame. So it'll be streaming, right? And then after that, it'll reside on those pages. So just wanted to let you know that if you get to the point where you're like, yo, I got a pressing question. And I want to get to the point where I can actually try to see if I can ask it live and see what happens. Because that's the point we want to get it to. Almost like a call-in show, but not exactly. Because I don't know if I'm learning a lot of new things with technology, right? And with the flow and producing a show live. It works a lot different when y'all come back and y'all give me questions. So in these weekly emails, if you decide that you want to send a question in and you say, wait a minute, and it ends up being discussed either in another weekly or ends up on my podcast or live show, understand that we will make sure that we don't get into the specifics, right? If it's something specific for a client, I'll be like, okay, let me break this down or let me send you something directly. But if it's generic enough for me to be able to say, oh, let me take this to the community, let me take this out to the world, then I will be doing that. So I want you to know, because you might not have even realized that I had an Instagram page. You might not have realized that I had a YouTube channel, and you might not even go look at the Facebook page. We don't get a lot of activity on Facebook. We have about 60 or so subscribers on YouTube, because a lot of people don't even realize we got a freaking YouTube page. And we have most of our interactions happen on Instagram. So this year's we are working on building up that YouTube page, going live, because I am a long form type content type person. Y'all notice from my weekly videos being, they were supposed to be like 5 to 10 minutes to like 20 to 30 minute segments where I wax deep. That is where we're going. So we'll be able to do that. I'll try to keep these a lot shorter, but still viable topics. And so just wanted to let you know that we are out here on the streets, on the internet streets, leveraging stuff to keep me disciplined. And the difference between the two things will be Wednesday will be a specific topic. Like in a moment, we're going to talk about tax on tips and overtime, just real briefly, right? And I did talk about those, just showing the form, the new schedule, and the deductions for, well, actually, I'm going to back that up. I'm not going to talk about tax on tips and overtime this week. I am going to bring that up because I'm going to do a more in-depth discussion. But those topics will come up in today's conversation, because I do want to stress something as we prepare for tax season to launch up. That is really the truth. But Friday's session is more in depth. It's kind of a look back on all the things that happened, tax related stuff, articles that I've read, cases that may have just been concluded in tax court, things that I think that are going to be interesting. And then there'll be a segment for us to answer questions. And then there will be some weeks that I'm praying that we can get back to interviewing people, because the whole purpose of the Talks with the Tax Cop podcast was really an opportunity for me to feature my clients, because I do have business clients, to be, hey, this is my opportunity to share what you do with the world, and to encourage people that you can create your own thing. Our origin stories are very, very similar. We all have different concerns and interests, but there's certain infrastructures or a certain thread that keeps us consistent and the same. And I wanted to share that with people that may be on the fence of kind of launching out, trying to do their own thing. And just to encourage you to say, hey, somebody else started from somewhere and now they're here. They might not be like big platform that everybody knows them nationally or internationally. But in our community, I like to feature those people that I work with that are doing some pretty dope things and handling things in a different manner if I can get a schedule set for people to come on. Now, some of those interviews may end up being pre-recorded, but I do want to get back to that point because I prefer really doing the interviews than necessarily y'all see me as a talking head every week. But that's how that podcast is going to differ from the weekly videos. Now, I'm gonna round this up because this week I want to talk about the fact that tax season is launching officially on Monday for my 1040s. Now, for my business clients, they got their organizers on Saturday. All my 1040 clients will have had their organizers received on Monday. So by the time you're watching this video, everybody that is an existing client of mine should already have the notification to be like, all right, let's go off to the races. We're ready to go. Answer this question, look at the client communication or communication proposal, sign that, and then we're off to the races. Here's your organizer. Start putting your stuff in there. The thing I want to distinguish heavily between what we're going to see in 2025 and 2026, which is why I'm going to do these weekly videos a little bit different, is that in 2025, we have 4 major things that are going to show up from the One Big Beautiful Bill that will kind of impact and sway stuff. And then even in those 4 features that we're going to talk about at a high level today, the way they're going to be implemented and throughout 2026 and going forward is going to be different. So in honesty, they're kind of like, we're working with kind of 3 different windows at one time at this stage, right? So Tax Cut and Jobs Act took us all the way through December 31st, 2025. That is Trump tax changes 1. Okay, so that's Tax Cut and Jobs Act. It took us to December 31st, 2021. In the middle of 2025, the One Big Beautiful Bill gets passed. And there are certain things that happen in the One Big Beautiful Bill that we will start to see on 2025 taxes. There will be a discussion on tax with tips. You'll see a new sheet if it applies to you, right? Tax on tips, tax on overtime, interest on cars, right? There's a senior deduction if it applies to you. I do have some seniors that we work with. Give it up for the seniors because they still here and they still be paying their money, okay? And then the other, it's 5 things, right? The bigger thing is SALT limit increases. We start at 40,000 instead of being starting and capped out at 10,000. We start at 40,000. We get capped out at 10,000. But the queen determines all this stuff. Okay, so there will be some questions though. There'll be a segment in the organizer that you'll see that calls out these things. Now, SALT is not going to change because now I'm going to have. What'll happen is it'll do the calculation. I already know what your state and local taxes are, because you already answered those questions elsewhere. So it's not going to be like One Big Beautiful Bill, SALT limitation. I'm not going to do that. But there will be a section that is now called out talking about questions related to tax on tips, question related to tax on overtime, and then there'll be questions related to things for seniors and primarily with the car, right? There'll be specific questions that are asked on the car. The reason why this is important is because in a lot of cases in the past, I only asked questions about vehicle situation because I never asked questions about tips or overtime, because if you're a W-2, certain information will come up. It'll be in your salary. So I'll use myself as an example. When I used to get paid, either when I was in the government, there were times that I had to do overtime, right? Very rarely. And how it happened was I either got to get hours or it'll be like I get paid. And those times I'm getting paid, I know, because I done made the election that I want time versus pay. And it all rolled up into my W-2 income, right? So it was all in box 1 on my W-2 because the salary, it got paid out. If I was getting money, it was getting taxed out the wazoo, okay? So that's going to be a little bit different because we're going to start to see those distinctions where there'll be another box in 2026 that shows the difference between regular earnings, tips, and overtime pay, because now we do have these new calculations. All right, you won't see it necessarily on 2025's W2, but you will definitely start to see this distinction in 2026. The reason why I'm saying this is because y'all gonna have to keep y'all own logs just to make sure it's right. And a lot of us in the DMV area that are working for federal government, you'll be able to see that on your LES. And so really definitely pay attention to that. If you're working private sector, I believe you'll be able to see that as well too. That distinction will be, and I've seen some people that work private sector, well, this is overtime pay. I've not seen anybody have tips, but it'll be overtime pay versus regular wages versus all your other leave. Let's say you took medical leave or you took vacation. Those categories are going to be important, and you're going to want to do your own checks. Hear me out. You're going to want to do your own checks, not just go looking at your bank account to make sure that your paycheck ended in there. I'm going to need you to look at your pay stubs. Definitely in 2026, because we want these hours to be captured correctly, that when we go to file the 2026 return, we can actually put this information in the right categories. Now, what does that mean for 2025? Because it is on the 2025 return. In some cases, if it's not broken out, we're going to be trying to figure out and getting some guesstimates. So if you see that we also asking for the actual W-2 and a pay stub, this is why. Because we're going to try to figure out if we can actually do that calculation to see if you can receive some of these additional deductions to decrease the tax liability or the amount you owe and increase a refund if possible. Okay. Now with tips, a lot of times I see tips for my independent contractors. And so I want to make this distinction between my independent contractors and my W-2 employees. Some of you all are both. I'm going to say this again. Some of you all are both W-2 employees for somebody, and you're also independent contractors, maybe in a different capacity. A lot of times I'll see people that'll be W-2 employees, but they also do Uber or Lyft. If you're doing Uber and Lyft, you're an independent contractor. And Uber and Lyft, y'all do get tips. So that type of information is broken out on your Lyft document, and it's broken out on your and or Uber document. So I can see those distinctions, right? They've been there that entire time that I'll see, okay, this was tips, you got a 1099K for this, etc. I want y'all to be mindful that where we'll start to see heavy tips will probably be for our independent contractors more so than anything else. And so I want y'all to have good records. If you are living life out here and you have a W-2, I'm not going to tell you we don't have some additional deductions that you can get, right? I just explained SALT going to go up, so a lot of us going to be winning in those states that where we live in higher rent district. However, you will have people that are sitting in situations where they have both, and the way we can actually leverage expenses and deductions, notice that I'm not saying write-offs, expenses and deductions, that leverage is going to end up happening on my Schedule C. And that's where independent contractors, LLCs that are not being taxed as a partnership or one of the corporations, that's where that information is being held. Now, I'm going to hip you to something. I don't know your expenses if you don't share your expenses with me. If you're keeping good track and you have a financial statement that is an income statement or a balance sheet, those are my financial statements. I'm not going to be able to get all that just from looking at your bank statements. You need to tally those totals up for anybody that you're working with, even if you're not working with me, okay? You need to be able to tally those totals up into the categories: advertising expense, dues and subscriptions expense, insurance expense, what you spent for the year. You as the independent contractor, you as the business owner, you as the one who's out here, hey, I got this much money and I need to know how much I'm paying self-employment tax, because that's what's going to happen on that Schedule C. That's your job to know, hey, I spent this much on this during the year. Hey, I need to tell you that so that can be captured on my tax return. All right. So I just want y'all to be mindful that We do have W-2 earners that will have certain deductions that apply to them. Most of my deductions are going to happen with somebody who is either renting property or is working as an independent contractor or has a business. Why? I'm going to tell you this. Is because even though the income is reported, you have your expenses that you've been holding close to the chest. You know what you've been spending your money on. The IRS don't know what they've been spending your money on. The difference with the W-2 is the W-2 has been withholding tax because that is a requirement of a W-2 employee. So taxes have been paid out. The IRS trying to do a reconciliation, the state trying to do a reconciliation so that we can actually see if there's any additional tax, self-employment, pass-through tax, that has to be accounted for. Really, it's income and the tax that they want to tax, the tax they want to apply to that additional income for you. Let me know if I confused you on that one. Needless to say, I wanted to make that announcement that we do have, the podcast is back. It is live Fridays from noon to 1, and you don't have to stay the whole time. Pop in, pop out. And to remind you that Monday is officially the kickoff for tax season for my 1040s, my individuals, right? That doesn't mean you're going to have all your documents. I'm anticipating that you'll have a majority of your documents by this week, definitely by the end of the month. And also remembering that just because you're a W-2 may not mean that you don't have independent contractor information and that you got to come up off of all the deeds so that we can do our thing if you're one of our clients. And to any tax professional, you're going to have to come up with off of all the information so that the person who's preparing the return, even if it's yourself, that you have the right information that's showing. So you're only taxed, hear me out, so that you're only taxed on the portion of income that you're supposed to be taxed on. I don't want you giving these people extra money for no reason out here, because we already paying property tax, we already paying sales tax, we already paying taxes on all kinds of stuff across state lines. Like, they getting us, okay? And the stuff cost them up. So, as much of your coins as you can keep and have paid throughout the year, we want that to reflect what it's supposed to reflect. All right? And for my seniors, no, I have not forgotten y'all. We love you, we love you, we love you. And we're going to make sure that we do everything to apply that new deduction that is going to apply to you as well. Until next week, which is can you believe it, going to be the last week of January? How did we get here so quickly? But we will be back next Wednesday where we actually come in with y'all specific video for y'all. And then on Friday, we'll be live on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And if I can't figure out how to get on Instagram or Facebook, I'm at least going to be live on YouTube, y'all. All right? Y'all pray for your girl. She learns technology. And I'll talk to y'all next week. Thank you, as always, for entrusting us to have the opportunity to help us, help you, help yourself. Peace.